everybody, and welcome back to another episode of The Male Perspective. I'm your host, Lana Reid, and today I'm really looking forward to today's conversation. I have with me a gentleman by the name of Sylvester Boyd. He is a historian, speaker, and he's written a series of books, a book series called The Road from Money. And I'm really looking forward to hearing more about that topic because it's near and dear to my heart. But first and foremost, Mr. Boyd, welcome to the show today.
Hi, how are you today?
I am well. I'm well. Where am I speaking to you from?
Chicago, Illinois, downtown.
Chi-town, Chi-town. Now, Chicago. I always tell people it's one of my favorite cities, mainly because it's very rich in Black history. It was founded by a Black person. Not too many people know that.
Yeah, DuSable, Jean Baptiste DuSable.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. So, as I mentioned in the opening, you have a series of books out called The Road from Money. So, if I could trouble you, I know you've done this many times, but I'm going to trouble you again. If you could tell us the plot line of the series of books and what made you write this book series.
My aunt is based on the life of my aunt, Estella Clemens. It
Mm-hmm.
is about 75% truth and 25% fiction.
Mm-hmm.
She was born in Money, Mississippi. I don't know whether you are familiar with Money, Mississippi.
Well, I am, but the audience might not be.
Okay, Money, Mississippi is the place where Emmett Till was killed and thrown in the Tallahatchie River, which flows through Money, Mississippi.
Mm-hmm.
It was the beginning of the civil rights movement. It was pre Martin Luther King, pre Rosa Parks.
Mm-hmm.
So it was the very birth of the civil rights movement happened in a town where my folks are from. I've never been to Money, Mississippi, but I sit when I was a kid at my grandmother's knee, and she told me these stories, and my aunt told me the stories, and so I feel like I'm very well acquainted. Most of my family originated from there, and during the Great Migration, they migrated to Chicago and other places north.
Awesome. Now, you mentioned a common scenario that happened in us older generation Blacks, where the elders, the matriarchs and patriarchs of the Black family would pass down our history and our stories. And I don't see that happening as much today. But how important is it for us to know our history?
Oh, very, very, very important. I think that's one of the things that we're suffering through now. And when you say to know our history, it's to know everybody's history. It's not just
Hmm.
Black history. It's not just European history. It is not just Mexican American history. It is all the histories. America was supposedly, and I quote, supposedly be made up of many different groups and all having equal rights. It has
Hmm.
never materialized, not one day under the flag.
Yes, indeed. So sad. And we're seeing that really play itself out in today's current events. But backtracking to what you said about, America is supposed to be a country of diversity. But sadly, this country was founded on the backs of people of color, especially free labor. And a lot of times when you talk to uh, white people today, they'll say things like, well, that was my great great grandfather. They had slaves or they had a plantation. I'm not obligated to that history. Why are you holding me accountable? What do you say to people like that?
Being a historian, I go back through many European history, Western civilization, African history. So most people are very uneducated. I'm not saying that in a way to be looking down. It's just a fact. Most
Hmm.
Americans do not have a grasp of what history is. And without that grasp, then become uh, captured by
Mm.
images that basically are wrong images. For example, you get in the movies, they portray the Indians as American Indians as savages,
Which is, yeah.
but they were just people fighting for their homeland.
Yes.
This was their land. We say Columbus discovered America. Columbus discovered the Indians waving to him for sure and saying, "How are you?" So, and not only that, uh, Africans were trading with South American cultures long before Columbus even thought of, probably when he was a kid or beyond that.
That's
So,
right.
mythological history, uh, and the fact that we just had a recent election that was based on and perpetrated on lies that were not true and had a lot of people believe them, means that that group of people are very poorly educated, and they, on the other hand, they have a sense of wanting to a sense of white supremacy that comes in
Mm-hmm.
there. And so the story is told from their perspective, which basically is halfway lies. And I'll give you a couple examples of that. All men are created equal, endowed by their creators with certain inalienable rights: life, liberty, pursuit, and happiness. But in order to justify slavery, white people said we are three-fourths of a human people,
Mm-hmm.
of being. So that was a justification. Uh, Guilt is there. Whites will have to address the guilt that they have, because what they've done is very wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Slavery was wrong. Jim Crow was wrong. And when you take something from one individual, it's wrong to take labor from people. It's wrong to do the things that they've done. And until they address that and quit being cowardice about it, and I'm frank about that, I'm a very frank person, you have to face your sins,
Mm-hmm.
your misgivings, your misdeeds. And until you do that, it's not going to ever clear up in America. It will never clear up until white people look in the mirror, Europeans, people who are rich, and say, hey, this was wrong.
Yes.
Yeah, they talk about reparations. Yeah, we do reparations. Other people have gotten reparations.
True.
You had free labor. Cotton built the South. Cotton was king in the South. Who picked the cotton? We did.
Mm-hmm.
And who
Mm-hmm.
got the benefits? They did. So this is, history is real. I'm not here to make people feel good. I'm not here to make people, say, oh, well, that's what that was. No, that is. We just had a thing on the 6th of this of last month that actually tried to overthrow the U.S. government.
Mm-hmm.
And what is being done about it? I'm watching very closely to see the punishment that's meted out. Because in this country, white males have never been able to face what they do, and it never been one word: accountability. They have no accountability. So we may lose our democracy if we don't start putting teeth in our laws like we do with other groups.
Yes, indeed.
If we come to a point where you can do anything and get away with it because of the color of your skin, we got a problem. We've had problems for a long time, but this is getting sort of out of hand. And history tells me that we're on the same path that created Nazi Germany. The
Mm-hmm.
same path, the 1930s. This is 1930s Nazi Germany. We wake up and look at it, because this is where we are. And we got all this line about elections and all that. Those are the things that democracy, election and voting is very sacred. And when
Mm-hmm.
you tamper with that, you it's like taking the timbers out from under a house that's held up by those timbers.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm very afraid, if we don't get it straight pretty soon, that we will be an autocracy
Yes.
pretty
Yes.
quickly here.
Yes.
And it's sort of a funny sort of thing. It's like America's original sin coming back to bite it in the rear end.
Yes,
So
indeed.
that's basically where I'm coming from with it. And from what I know of history, uh, history should not be a mystery, I always say. And to most of us, history is a mystery.
Mm-hmm.
We
Yeah.
don't we don't understand our culture. We don't understand other people's culture. And until you understand other fellows' culture, it'll be them and us, those other people.
Yes, and I think that's what you're mentioning. We're at now, sadly, them and us. And because I was taking some time to look at some footage of the people who really believe in, the election was stolen or whatever. But underlying a lot of that, it really seems to be some sort of fear that their rights or their world or white privilege is going to be demolished. And for me, that's ironic because the place that you're saying that your own America, you came and stole it from somebody else. So you should really be trying to create a peaceful space because somebody else allowed you to come and invade their land. You got free labor or whatever. You really don't have privilege to stand on. And we're coming off of, you mentioned January 6th. We're coming off of this incident where we watched all of these people who believe this conspiracy, this lie that the election was stolen. Their world, their beliefs are being attacked. Um, but just this previous summer, we witnessed peaceful protest after peaceful protest of Black people, white people, Hispanic people, all together, bonded for a cause that got a completely different treatment than these people on January 6th, but yet they still want to say there's no difference in treatment. I don't. I mean, when is the light bulb gonna click on?
Well, you mentioned the word power.
Uh,
That is the word. White males, that's the group that has had all the power in the United States of America ever since the slave ships came across the ocean. They have touched everyone in a sort of a negative way. African Americans were slaves. Indians, the land was stolen. The Mexicans, the land was stolen.
mhm.
The Asians were locked up in internment camps during World War II. So there's not a group that white culture has touched that it didn't influence in a negative sort of way.
Mhm.
They omit a lot of history.
Yes.
They omit when you look at the history books, they're shambles. I mean,
Mhm.
when I started to get deep into history, I have a degree in it and studied deeply, and I've been fortunate enough to travel the world. I'm able to compare places. I just got back from Cuba just before the pandemic.
Mhm.
I've been to Denmark. I've been to Norway. I've been to Venezuela, and different cultures and different people, different cooking, different architecture. Every country has something to contribute to the world. Every culture that is in the United States of America has contributed to it. But the benefits have been like lopsided. That's the
Yes.
problem. And the power that is willed by white men at this point is being threatened, and they are very afraid of the vote. Why would you
Mhm.
be afraid of the vote? Because they know that if the minority vote in blocks, they will not be able to control things the way they have. It's a fear, and it's a righteous fear. They should fear being doing wrong. They've done wrong, and now you have to pay the price for doing wrong. That
Yes.
doesn't mean that we're trying to overthrow the government because it looks like the threat is coming from white people, not black people.
Mhm.
And so
Yes.
you have to look at it that way too. You have to look at the images that they've given. Uh, Whites feel that they're superior. They're not. And most people don't know skin color is just a adaptation to the climate that you originated from.
Mhm. Mhm.
So a polar bear is white because he's in
He's
a
in the
white
snow. Yeah.
area, snow, and he would never catch another animal if he was any other color. If he was brown, he wouldn't. They would see him, and he could never eat.
Mhm.
So that there's reasons for everything. That everything is interconnected. You can't do to me something that's not connected to you. Let's talk
That's
about
right.
history. And I was a history teacher too. I've done that.
Mhm.
So in a history class, you go in and you get this false history, George Washington. You get a few people, and then you omit the Indians, and then when you do say the Indian did something, it's in a negative connotation.
Yes.
They're redskins. They're savages.
Mhm.
World War II people were demeaned that was Japanese. Now, not to say that some things were justified in World War II because Adolf Hitler was atrocious, but we
Mhm.
seem to want to follow his footsteps.
Mhm.
I was just looking at a historical a documentary on TV the other day, and the number of people saying Zig Heil looks like the same number of people that's in the right wing right now of the Republican Party. The
Mhm.
same thing. They don't have truth. Hitler told he was very charismatic.
Yes.
Our former president, uh, very
Very
charismatic.
charismatic. Yes.
You should follow not a leader, but you should follow the Constitution. And those people have gotten it wrong. You know, the Constitution is there. It's a beautiful document. I have some problems with some things. I don't think a Supreme Court justice should sit for life. You don't put anybody to life for anything. That's a
Mhm.
problem. Needs to be corrected.
Mhm.
And you can't say what happened in 18 so and go by that when those people never saw a TV, they never had a computer, they never,
Yes.
so and the Constitution needs to be adjusted.
Evolved.
It,
Yes.
it, it doesn't evolve that well. It's well, the Constitution says, well, yeah, but the people that wrote it were for their times. I'll pat them on the back. Beautiful
Mhm.
document. Now, do you live up to it? No, you don't live up to it
Mhm.
because you sit back and you say all men are created equal and you got slaves. I don't understand that. That's
Yes.
hypocrisy in America is very hypocritical. I always
Yes.
say we have a lot of hypocrisy in our democracy. It's
Yes.
like the backbone.
Yes. And you mentioned like the Constitution didn't evolve, but on some aspects, uh, times and ways that were built into the Constitution are still the same. Like I know one of the topics that you talk about in your book are Jim Crow laws that were embedded into our legal system from decades and decades ago. But here we see in Georgia where after Stacey Abrams did her thing and got everybody out to vote, and we got those two senators that we needed. Um, Now GOP wants to change the voting laws. So back in the South, you see a lot of areas where they want to do gerrymandering. It seems like some ways are just really stuck in, and some ways we evolve. And you know, I don't know. It's a very scary time. It's a very scary time in America right now, and I don't know if everybody is fully eyes wide open and really appreciating. I guess I feel like some people say, okay, well, Biden is there. Oh, we gave you a token. You've got Kamala in there. Everybody should be happy. Black people should shut up. But there's so much more work to do.
Well, I'll give you one word right now: fear.
Mm-hmm.
That is the hallmark of what we're going through, a time of fear. We got a disease that's running rampant.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of really everybody concentrating on the disease and getting well, some people feel that they're done right to get on an airplane and spread the disease all over. To have house parties that they spread it. They have a God-given right not to wear face masks.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the same group. Somehow or other, they've gotten in their head that they're superior to everybody else, and they don't care about anybody else, and they really don't care about themselves, because if you understand anything about diseases and viruses, you know that they don't really say, well, this is a black person, brown person, or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
They don't say whether this is a rich person, a poor person, or whatever. They don't care. Okay. And if you don't care about yourself, then I don't expect you to care about me, because I know
Mm-hmm.
self-preservation is the first law of nature. So, these things that we are going through right now and the good part about it. Now we talk about negative. There's good. The air is cleaner because the cars are not running up and down the highways like they used. Cruise ships are put up. The airplanes are put up. And so the environment is recovering. We're made to face racism. We right now is in our face, and the people that didn't want to look at it, they got to look at it. And
Mm-hmm.
if you don't look at it now, it will just keep staying in your face. It's a drumbeat.
Mm-hmm.
So right now, white America will have to face a mirror, and it's going to be ugly.
Oh yeah.
It's going to be ugly, because when you turn around and see yourself and you've done all these things to other people, that's what they run from. That's what they run from. You have to understand that human beings, no matter what skin color, because everybody has got a skin color.
Yes,
I haven't
indeed.
seen too many clear people walking around. That you can see through. There's no color. No, leopards got spots on them.
That's right.
When every living thing has some type of skin to cover it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so what's this thing about color? We vary. We vary in color, and we don't vary as much as most of nature, because we got fish with polka dots and stripes
Mm-hmm.
and black
Flowers
and
in
blue and
different
orange, and
colors.
birds are different. And if we had that kind of color, I don't know what we would do, because we only got a very few shades. We very, very little compared to the rest of the planet, living
Yes,
creatures.
indeed.
And we
Yes.
can't get along with that. So, we got to think about who we are and where we are. And here's another thing I always say: everything is connected to the next thing. Nothing
Yes.
happens in a void. If you don't teach me my history, guess what? You left out part of your history too.
Yes.
You
Yes.
can't do it. They're connected. They're
Yes.
not. You got your black history, white history, Mexican. All of them are connected. We have one history, world
Yes.
history. Everybody in the world is connected to the other. From what I got in my studies, when you get deep into really studying history and geography, I have geography again. You find that we're all connected.
Yes.
And if I don't have money, I may have to rob you, because I'm not going to go hungry.
Mm-hmm.
And now you see me as a villain, but for whatever reason, I didn't get the education. I didn't get whatever I had to have. So I had to take it from you.
Yes.
So that it always comes back. It comes in a funny sort of way. We found out locking up people in jails were not too good, because the tax base, it hurts.
Oh
Somebody's
yes.
got to feed the prisoners.
It
That's
doesn't
the way
make
it
it
goes.
doesn't make as much it doesn't make sense the amount of money we spend on incarcerating people when it would be better to rehabilitate, invest more money into communities, giving them education options, housing options. We have, and it's built into the Constitution. We have basic rights, and it just seems like we've lost sight of the basic rights and providing that to the American people, no matter what color they are, no matter what community they are, no matter what socio and economic status that they come from. It just seems like it's shifted towards the privileged few sitting on the top that tend to be of one particular color.
Well, it's a convenient way of getting rid of minorities. You lock up the minorities. So now you feel that they don't have to challenge you for jobs and employment. Slavery is still justified within the prison system. A lot of people don't know that. That's the one place that slavery is allowed.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of the prison system also sells stocks. You can buy stocks in the prison system. I
Mm-hmm.
think that's atrocious to make profit off of people being incarcerated.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the prisons are located in suburban areas where generally white areas that prosper from that prison being there, the commissaries and the supplies for the prison, the guards for the prison, all from mostly rural white areas or close to the city white areas. So
Mm-hmm.
there's a reason for it. That's exploitation along the line.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you look at it, you follow the dollars, you see why that happened. It's not by accident.
Mm-hmm.
There was a time that really all the police, the word police, it came from slave patrol.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's where it came from. And I feel that all policemen should be licensed. There should not be one cop at any level that does not have a license to carry training. Yet you should be trained, they should be licensed, and they should be reviewed every periodically.
Yes.
And the fact that you don't keep track of how many black and brown people you locked up, that means I can lock up as many as and nobody. But the other
Mm-hmm.
thing that you want to do, you keep very well track of. So
I think,
there's
not to cut you off, I think America is the only country that has the shortest training period
right.
for law enforcement.
Yeah, one of them.
Yeah, other countries they have to go and get a college degree, and I mean, it's just we don't give our law enforcement effective, lengthy training for the job that they end up having to do.
And it's the same old story, that you do something that they're bad cops, they're good cops.
Hmm.
And, a good police officer's worth their weight in gold. But a racist cop is the worst vile thing on earth, as far as I'm concerned. And
Hmm.
we got enough of them
Hmm.
because the same groups that are, let's say KKK, there's nothing to stop them from having that same attitude in the police department. But
Hmm.
the way you justify that or correct that is to say you have a license, and that license you don't have to go through the union to suspend the license. The government be in charge, just like a barber. A barber has a license. A beautician has. Lawyers are licensed.
Hmm.
So what? This person's got life and death, and they don't have a license. Bar the union. I'm not. The unions keep. Okay, they're right all the time, 100% of the time.
Hmm.
There's never anything that they do wrong. Okay.
Hmm.
So you come from that stand, but you need to have a licensing policy in America. A lot of things need to change. You need to have a constitutional convention. I would think every 25 years, you review the Constitution, you sunset laws, you bring in new law, you look at what it is.
Yeah.
How are these laws being affected right now?
Yeah.
Something is archaic and old, you get rid of it.
Yes.
But maybe you think about other things in a different way.
Yeah,
So,
because
I mean,
yeah, because you said the convention. I kind of like that because right now the buzz is all the legal scholars are going through the books and trying to see is there anything that says you can impeach a president once he or she is out of office, and they're kind of like scoring through the legal precedent for that because this is the moment in time that we find ourselves in. You know, like you said before, everything has to evolve. You have to relook at things and go back and revisit things. Nobody would have expected that we would have had a president who was using social media to rally his troops, but we have to now compensate for that type of, you know, environment that we're creating. So I agree we should revisit our constitution more frequently than what we do now.
every 25 or every 50 years. I don't think there should be any doubt about that. The other thing I do believe is that we are a reactive society. We're not a proactive society.
Mm-hmm.
A reactive society is somebody does something and everybody gets up in arms and we react to that.
Mm-hmm.
Stop it from happening in the first place. That's
Mm-hmm.
I've been to, there's countries on this planet. I've been to Denmark, and if you want to look it up, look up how many murders they have in a year.
Mm-hmm.
And quit saying that we're the best country on the face of the earth because
Mm-hmm.
we have not proven to be so. It does not go by what you say; it goes by what you do.
Mm-hmm.
When you look at our record, it has not been a beautiful record.
No.
We have been, I think, my last estimate, I think we have, since America was founded, there's only been about 16 or 17 years that we weren't in conflict somewhere in the world.
Mm.
We're a warlike country, very warlike. So, I
Mm-hmm.
mean, these things we have to deal with. I mean, I know them because I'm coming from the history books, I'm coming from the geography books, I'm coming from traveling. So I know these things,
Mm-hmm.
but we don't teach our kids that.
No.
And so we get kids that don't know, and when you don't know, you can't react. You act from something that you don't know instead of something that you do know.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a very important thing. When I taught school, it was very important for me to. Uh, I was a substitute, and many times I would teach kids. What's this? What's the state's capitals? You 7th, 8th grade. You know the capital of the state. You'll be surprised what kids don't know, and when they don't, if you don't keep kids entertained and get their attention, I mean vivid attention, they become uninterested, and when they become uninterested, they don't learn, they drop out of school, and so we get what we got.
Mm-hmm.
And then on the other side of it, why is it that the I had a background that takes me all over because I've lived in an all-white society, I've lived in an all-black society, and I've lived in an Asian society, well, mixed society. I lived
Mm-hmm.
at 22nd and State here in Chicago. That's Chinatown. I've lived. My folks, when I was a little boy, I was born in the South Side of Chicago, all black. And then when I was about 15 years old, we moved to Michigan. My mother bought 40 acres of land. My stepfather built a house piece by piece on the weekends, and they moved in it and didn't have a mortgage. They were smart enough to get out of it. And this was years ago. I'm talking 1958. And so and when I went to a school in Allegan, Michigan, Southwest Michigan,
Mm-hmm.
and only 5% of that school was African American. So I got it, and the difference between the school in Chicago and the school between what was in Michigan was it was like night and day. They
Mm-hmm.
had tennis courts. They had a golf club. I mean, that's the school. 4 years of high school. They had basketball program. They had track. They had everything you could imagine
Mm-hmm.
because it was 95% white.
Right. Yeah.
And so I got a chance to see the difference. I can compare them. Most people never get that chance.
You
Uh,
bring up something. I hate to keep on cutting you off. You bring up something because I went to very diverse high schools where most often I was the only black person in the crowd. And one of the things that I got all the time, which I still struggle with to this day, um, is you would encounter white people who would say things, and they're the most liberal, most progressive white people. I'm not racist. I have a black friend, or, my next door neighbor's black. I can't be racist. But yet they do subtle racist things. It's very difficult sometimes to get white people to look in the mirror and say and see the big and small scale racist actions that they might be doing. You know what I'm saying? And some of them, like me and you, we went to diverse high schools, and we are in diverse communities. Some of these people are our friends. Some of these people are our coworkers. It's hard to navigate as a black person around a white person who doesn't think that they're racist.
yeah, I get some of that. Here's was another big difference. When I went to school in the city, we lived in public housing. My folks
Mm,
went from public housing to their own home.
mm-hmm,
But that was what the public houses were supposed to be. You stay a little while, get
mm-hmm,
your stuff on your feet, and move on. Well, we got to be a permanent situation. But the thing that I saw in high school, I never saw fights. I mean, I went through 4 years of high school. I think I saw one fight
Mm.
in 4 years. In the city, it's every day. I mean, every other couple of days, kids were fighting. Uh, the You could hear the clock tick on the wall in the classes that I went to. So
Mm.
there is a difference. Discipline wise, I never heard the N word. In 4 years, and I still, and this was in the 60s.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm supposed to. I mean, from what's going on in the world, and I mean, this is civil rights movement, demonstration, Dr. King, and I never heard the N word. 4 years of high school. And what really gets me is that was 50 some odd years ago, almost 60 years ago, because I'm 77. And when I go back to class reunions, it's like, in on the internet, somebody dies in the class, it's just like you're part of a group or something. So it's not always what we think. This
Mm-hmm.
is Southwest Michigan, but then Southwest Michigan also has the Michigan militias and all these other things that are negative. So
Mm.
I could never place where I was and how I was there, but because I guess it was not enough African Americans or people of other races, racism just never was. I went on hayrides. I did everything everybody else did. I mean, I'm a human being, so I'm supposed to be able to do that.
Yes.
But when I look back at it, I'm amazed. It
Mm-hmm.
actually amazes me. There was very, very, very little. If there was racism, I didn't see it. I'm sure
Yeah.
there was some, but it was never done to my face. So
Yes.
I can't say something happened that didn't happen because then I would be untrue.
Yeah.
So I mean, there was sort of a little cocoon or something I was in.
Yeah, there's some places in America there are utopia spots in some places in America, but unfortunately, the bigger picture of the whole country is there's a lot of work to do moving forward, and it just seems like we've been at this for years and years and years, and a lot of us are exhausted on both sides, and we're hoping that this comes to some sort of resolution, positive resolution moving forward, because we're all just human beings. We all just want the same things that America has promised us, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. No matter if I'm green with polka dots and orange stripes, I should have that, because it's written into our Constitution. And we're still struggling with this. We're just really still struggling with this. I
We
mean,
we should get away from dealing with people's color, gender, religion, all those things. And I'm going to write another book that's going to be dealing with the separation, the
hmm
different things they're all the same.
hmm
It was the same in the Roman Empire. They're the same today. I
hmm
mean, when you study history, and that's what people don't, if you don't get history, you don't get it. There's a story to
hmm
be told out there. And history tells you the story.
hmm
And you connect with history. I've been to places where the Civil War battlegrounds, where there were still weapons that were on the ground, and they just encased them in glass so you could look through. And actually, and when you know what happened, as a historian, I know the battles of Shiloh and Antietam and the generals, so it all comes to life. It takes you
hmm
to a place that you don't get to. The ticket is studying and learning history. Then you can go to these places and and it brings a different sense of what that place is.
Yes, know your history.
When I was in Cuba recently, I was able to, that's a communist country. I was in Cuba and some in the old cars and all of that stuff, and you find out it looked exactly as I pictured it.
Mm-hmm.
And then I remember the Cuban Missile Crisis, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm going by the building where I went to the military academy, where they actually showed the planes that they would, that would participate in that, and so the Bay of Pigs. So you learn that the world is connected, and what you put in this head of yours is very important. It's
Mm-hmm.
very important. And a lot of people don't seem like they have a lot there. I'm not, I'm not, I don't mean to make fun of everybody. And
Yes,
I'm not superior because anybody can open a history book and learn history. I'm not
yes, indeed.
superior. It
It's
takes the time to learn who you are, where you came from,
who your
and
neighbors are and everything. Yes.
that's it. Because history is very important. And if I can stress one thing from this program, history and geography are very important subjects just as much as calculus, because I may not know geometry and have a reason but I'll always have a reason to know history because history is part of every being.
Yes, indeed. It's so important to know history. I mean, it's scary when people don't fully appreciate and grasp history. I mean, to hear some young people say things like the Holocaust never happened. It's we're starting to teeter on some very dangerous ground here when people want to deny. When the congresswoman said that 9/11 didn't happen. You don't want people to start to create these alternate perceptions of what history actually was and start to slant things. So it's very important that we as individuals and collectives, you know, research, understand, and sometimes you got to go seek it because it's not written in some of your high school history books. You actually have to go out there and look for history and learn history. So it's very vital. It's very vital.
Most of a lot of omissions, a lot of exaggerations, because
Mhm.
you get the Tom Cruise, and you very seldom see a black man or woman as all American. You get the Indians that are savages. You get all these pictures that are painted for you. Tarzan, when I was a kid, I could never figure out why Tarzan was white when
Coming
I
from the
looked at it
jungle,
on
right?
television. So when you think about it, I mean, images. I'm going to have a section in the book talking about images. We're fed
Hmm.
images all the time that says we're better, we're superior, you're inferior. And people buy into that all day. Once we learn who we are, and I
Hmm.
think that's part of the problem too, because we're starting to vote. We're depending on it. We wouldn't vote. We're starting to get better educated. That makes a
Hmm.
difference, and that threatens the people who have told you all your life that you are inferior.
Hmm.
And the idea that my folks, my great granddaddy, owned you. How can you be equal to me?
Hmm. Hmm.
There's all it goes back, and it has many tentacles. I said racism has many tentacles.
Yeah.
It's a cancer, and you have to cut it out because it spreads from individual to individual instead of cell to cell.
Yeah, the whole slanting of the story and wanting to make myself look better than you. I was struggling with that this past summer when all of the protests, Black Lives Matter protests, broke out, because a lot of well-meaning people, let me be nice, were showing me this picture of Martin Luther King peacefully protesting, and how come the protest can't be peaceful like that? And I kept on saying, but you're not telling the whole story, because 5 minutes after this picture was taken, white police officers were beating that whole entire crowd down. So tell the whole story. Don't just tell the half the story. Tell the whole story. And I think that's why people have to really search for history, because you really want to, the omissions, like you said, the omissions is what's crucial, because then you learn the full scope of the picture. And I think it becomes harder to deny that racism is really something that exists and something that we really need to eradicate.
Well, we know it. We know it exists, and the denial is because I don't want to see what I see.
Hmm.
They don't want to see what they know.
Hmm.
They don't want to change, and change is always hard.
Hmm.
And the longer you let a bad seed grow, the bigger the tree gets. My grandma used to say, if you plant a bad seed, you get a crooked plant which bears crooked fruit.
Go on, grandma. Go on,
Yeah, so
grandma.
that old time stuff. But I came up with that type of thing. Money, Mississippi, though, and she was a sharecropper at one time in her life.
Hmm.
And by the way, my aunt, who the story is based on in my book, she went from those cotton fields on Money, Mississippi to a millionaire here in
There
Chicago.
you go.
She
There
owned
you
apartment buildings. She was a very
Awesome.
wise lady. She stood on the Great Wall of China at age 79. She went to
Awesome.
Singapore. She traveled the world. So I got some of her in me because I saw it could be done. I had a leader that showed me it could be done. And you got to remember, she was a woman, and this was in the 50s, 40s,
That's
and
right.
50s.
There
So
was Kamala before Kamala even existed, huh?
that right, and so that I mean that, and I hope that this gets to be a. I've had some people talk about a mini TV series,
That would
and
be great.
also possibly that it might be a motion picture. So,
That would be awesome.
so but I sit on the right, and everybody got a story. There's stories. Everybody's got a story, but you got to have the patience and the will to sit down and write your story.
Hmm.
Because in my family, I'm the only one that has written a story about the family. So now that story's there and everybody's loving it. And now
Um,
they got a family history that's in a book. And,
that's
and the thing that gets me, I have people on radio and TV talking about my aunt and what she accomplished and what my family
Awesome.
accomplished.
Awesome.
But if I had never sat down and put it to paper and pen, it wouldn't be there.
Yeah.
And I think it behooves a lot of people to start writing down, because the story came from my grandmother who lived in Money, Mississippi, and I never been to Money, Mississippi. It
Yeah.
came from my aunts. It came from my uncles. They passed the family story down, and so that's unique. I
Yeah.
didn't know it was unique at that point in time, but most of us don't do that. We disconnected. We're a lot
Yes.
more
Now,
disconnected.
now the legacy is documented, and I think a lot more of us need to document our legacies, and that's a beautiful thing. Well, Mr. Boyd, I have taken up more than my 30 minutes with you today. I apologize, but I truly enjoyed talking about anything that has to do with my Black community. So I appreciate your time. I want to do my random question, and then I want you to, if I could trouble you, to tell people how they pick up your books. You have a new one coming out soon, or
Yes,
as
matter of fact, it's at the publisher now.
okay, so we're gonna do a random question. Let's see what we get here. Totally random, Mr. Boyd. Let's see what we've got here. What is the best thing about being male?
What is the best thing about being male? I'm not a female.
Good answer. Good answer. Good answer. All righty, Mr. Boyd. Please tell us how we pick up the book and when is the new one coming out?
The new one will be out about the 30th of next month. I hope that everybody can pick up a copy. But this is my third book in the series, and my publisher wanted me to write the fourth book. So I'm starting the fourth book already. The third one's not out, and I'm right onto the fourth one. You can get my book at boydbooks.net.
Okay.
BoydBooks.net. Boydbooks.net.
All
And
right.
if you go to that site, you'll also get my background, and you'll see a lot of other things on my site.
All right. And before I go, you have one more interesting thing that you do. You're in the movies, right?
Yes. I've been on the screen with Academy Award-winning actors and actresses: Taraji P. Henson, Terrence
Oh,
Howard, Tay
awesome.
Diggs, just a whole bunch, Wendell Pierce, just a whole host of uh, folks that I look at TV a lot of times, and I'm right there with that person a day before. Regina King, she just did the
Oh yeah, she did that movie
yeah,
One Night in Miami with the
yeah.
story of Muhammad Ali and Malcolm X.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I was
I haven't.
on set. I was on set with her. So I've
Oh,
had a sort of real interesting life. I was the third African American crew chief at American Airlines, and that's in
okay.
charge of loading. I loaded one of the first 747 aircrafts out of O'Hare
Ooh,
Field here.
awesome.
So I've done.
So somebody needs to write your life stories too.
Yeah, people keep pushing me that way, but I'm gonna write. You write what comes, and this came. So I'm looking forward to finishing the series, and then I'm going to write a political book. So
Okay.
I think that's the next one. And but you never know, because I'm writing the fourth book in the series. I was only going to do three, and then the publisher says, "Look, we got some things that we want to see. This was places we wanted to go. It looks like a
Mm.
mini series or something else. We got some irons in the fire. So
All
I
righty.
got to do it that."
Yeah, so we'll keep our eyes open for a film, and I'll be like, "Hey, I interviewed him years ago, and now look at that. It came to be." So, looking forward to that. Well, Mr. Boyd, I appreciate your time today. Thank you for all of the information you gave and the knowledge base you have, and I just thank you for spending time with me today.
Yeah. Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
All righty. That's all for this week's episode of The Male Perspective. I'm your host, Lana Reid, and I will see everybody next time.